They were preparing to celebrate their 30th wedding anniversary in grand style. 30 years together. Not many couples could claim such a milestone with genuine love still intact. For Dahlia Everidge, it felt like a blessing written by fate itself. She had always believed she was one of the lucky ones. From the moment Marcus entered her life, everything had seemed to fall into place. He wasn't just a husband. He was her anchor, her pride, and the center of her world. Dependable, intelligent, and deeply committed. Marcus was the kind of man other women dreamed of, and many had tried to take from her over the years. But none had succeeded, because Marcus loved Dahlia in a way that never faded. Even after 3 decades, he still looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. He still whispered words of love, still made her feel cherished, still proved, every single day, that she had made the right choice. And yet, beneath that perfect life, something was missing. Something that quietly haunted Dahlia's heart. Early one morning, long before sunrise, the house was silent except for the soft clinking of a spoon against a bowl. Dahlia stood in the kitchen, gently stirring pancake batter, her thoughts drifting as a small smile formed on her lips. She was thinking about Marcus, about the surprise she had been planning. The kitchen door creaked open, breaking the silence. Her younger daughter Zara stepped in, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Mom, it's barely 5 in the morning," Zara mumbled. "Why are you awake?" Dahlia turned, her face glowing with excitement. "I couldn't sleep," she said warmly. "I'm too excited about your father's anniversary surprise." Zara leaned against the counter, curious now. "What surprise?" Dahlia lowered her voice slightly as if sharing a secret. "I finally convinced your Aunt Clara to come." Zara's eyes widened instantly. "Aunt Clara? Seriously? After all these years?" Dahlia nodded slowly, though her expression softened with something deeper, something heavier. "It's been 24 years, she said quietly. "You weren't even born when it happened." Zara shook her head in disbelief. "That's insane! Holding a grudge for that long?" Dahlia sighed, setting the bowl aside. "It wasn't just a simple argument," she explained. "At least, not to her." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Clara was in love with one of your father's close friends back then. Truly in love. But that man met another woman and couldn't decide between them." Zara frowned. "So what did Dad do?" "He gave his opinion," Dahlia replied. "He said, if he were in his friend's place, he wouldn't choose Clara." Zara blinked. "Wait, that's it?" "It sounds small," Dahlia admitted. "But sometimes the smallest words can cause the deepest wounds." She continued softly. "That man eventually chose the other woman. And Clara? She never recovered from it. Did she ever marry?" Zara asked. Dahlia shook her head. "No, she stayed alone all these years." A quiet sadness filled the kitchen. Zara looked down, her voice softer now. "That's really sad." "It is," Dahlia agreed. "But maybe this anniversary can heal old wounds." Zara nodded slowly. "Maybe Dad and Aunt Clara can finally make peace." Dahlia gave a faint smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Zara noticed immediately. "Mom," she said carefully, "aren't you happy?" "I am," Dahlia replied. "For your father? For Clara?" She hesitated. "But that's not the only thing on my mind." Zara's expression shifted. She already knew. "You're talking about grandchildren, aren't you?" Dahlia's face fell. "Who else would I be talking about?" The words came out heavier than she intended. "Simone is almost 30. She's been married for 8 years. You've been married for 4. And still, nothing." The air in the room turned tense. Zara looked away, clearly hurt. "Mom, we've tried everything," she said quietly. "Doctors said we're both fine." "I know what they said," Dahlia replied, her voice tightening slightly. "But something isn't right." She didn't say more, because deep inside, she had her own theory, a theory she had never shared with anyone. Before Zara could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway. Simone, the older daughter, walked into the kitchen, still half asleep. "What are you two whispering about this early?" she asked, turning on the kettle. "Nothing important," Dahlia said quickly, forcing a lighter tone. "You should have slept more. You came late." Simone smirked slightly. "I didn't drive 250 miles just to sleep, Mom." She crossed her arms. "Now tell me why you dragged both of us here so urgently." Dahlia exchanged a glance with Zara, then took a deep breath. "Because I want your father's anniversary to be perfect," she said. Simone raised an eyebrow. "That's it?" "Not just that," Dahlia continued. "We have a lot to do. We need to choose a venue, plan the celebration, organize everything, and most importantly, come up with an unforgettable gift." Zara jumped in excitedly. "And it has to be a surprise." Simone sighed. though a small smile appeared. You could have told us all this on the phone. No, Dahlia said firmly. If I did, you wouldn't have come. Simone couldn't argue with that. The three women sat down together, eating breakfast while tossing around ideas for the perfect gift. But nothing felt right. Everything seemed ordinary, predictable, and Dahlia wanted something extraordinary, something that would truly touch Marcus's heart. Hours later, they headed out to the mall. After trying on several outfits, Dahlia finally chose a stunning lilac floor-length gown, paired with elegant heels. At 55, she still carried herself with confidence and grace. But her mind was elsewhere, always drifting back to the same thought, the same worry, the same unanswered question. Why couldn't her daughters have children? Later, as they walked down the street, something unexpected happened. Simone suddenly stopped. Her eyes locked onto a magazine cover featuring an old royal wedding. And in that moment, an idea was born. I've got it, she said, her voice filled with excitement. Zara turned. What? We'll make a film, Simone explained. A family wedding film, starting from ancestors, grandparents, all the way to mom and dad, and us. Zara's face lit up instantly. That's brilliant! Dahlia felt a spark of hope. Finally, something meaningful, something unique. They rushed home and began searching through old albums, boxes, and memories. Photos, videos, fragments of the past, slowly coming together. Simone took charge of the project. I'll handle the film, she said confidently. You just send me everything you find. By evening, they had accomplished more than expected. The venue was booked. The outfit was chosen. The gift idea was ready. Everything seemed perfect, but Dahlia wasn't done yet. As they sat together drinking tea, she looked at her daughters and asked mysteriously, Who wants to take a road trip with me? Simone groaned. Where? To your father's old hometown, Dahlia said. Both daughters froze. Why? Zara asked. Dahlia hesitated, then answered carefully. There might be old photographs there. Wedding photos. Simone shook her head. Mom, it's over 600 miles away. That house is probably gone. Dahlia smiled faintly. Then I'll go alone. And in that moment, neither daughter realized this wasn't about photos at all. This was about something much deeper, something buried in the past, something Dahlia had never spoken of, and something that would soon change everything. The next morning, the house felt unusually quiet. Simone and Zara had already left, returning to their own lives, their own homes, their own routines. The laughter and energy they had brought with them disappeared as quickly as it had arrived, leaving behind a heavy stillness. But Dahlia didn't feel lonely. She felt determined. Standing by the window with her phone in hand, she stared at the map one last time. The small, nearly forgotten town where Marcus had spent his childhood was still there, a tiny dot, surrounded by endless green. It was far, isolated, and exactly where she needed to go. Without giving herself time to doubt, she finalized her booking. A flight to the nearest city. From there, she would find a way to reach the village. Time was limited. Marcus would return in just a few days. Everything had to be done before that, because what she was about to do, she couldn't explain to him. Not yet. Not until she had answers. Not until she was sure. The journey felt longer than it should have. Even after landing, the road stretched endlessly. Ahead, as the taxi carried her deeper into unfamiliar territory, the city quickly faded behind them, replaced by quiet roads, dense greenery, and a strange, almost forgotten silence. 4 hours later, the car finally slowed. We're here, the driver said. Dahlia stepped out, her heels touching uneven ground. She looked around and immediately felt something she couldn't explain. The town wasn't completely abandoned, but it felt empty. Yards were overgrown with tall grass. Houses stood tired and worn, as if they had been waiting for something or someone that never returned. The air carried the scent of lilac and wild roses, strangely beautiful against the backdrop of decay. It was peaceful, but also unsettling. If you're not staying long, the driver spoke again, breaking the silence. I can wait for you. Dahlia turned to him, surprised. You would? He nodded. Not much work out here anyway. She felt a wave of relief. Yes, please. I won't be more than 2 hours. She didn't want to be alone here. Not really. The house stood exactly where she remembered it. Old, silent, hidden behind a rusted gate and thick, wild grass that reached almost to her knees. For a moment, she just stood there. Memories began to surface, faint, distant, but still alive. 30 years ago, she had stood here before, desperate, broken, and somehow she had left with hope. Before she could gather her thoughts, a voice startled her. Well now, don't think I've seen you around here before. Dahlia turned sharply. An old man was walking slowly toward her, his eyes sharp despite his age. "I'm Marcus Everidge's wife," she said politely. "His family used to live here." The man's expression changed immediately. "Of course I remember them," he said. "Good people." He studied her for a moment. "So why are you here? Thinking of selling the place?" Dahlia quickly shook her head. "No, just came to check its condition. Maybe we'll use it for summer visits." The lie came easily. The old man nodded as if satisfied. "Well, you'll need help getting in." He stepped forward, grabbing the rusted latch and forcing it open with surprising strength. The gate creaked loudly, as if protesting after years of silence. "You should ask Miss Edmé next door for a scythe," he added. "This grass won't clear itself." Dahlia thanked him and made her way to the neighboring house. The contrast was immediate. Unlike the abandoned surroundings, this yard showed signs of life. Chickens wandered freely. A black cat sat lazily on the fence, watching her with curious eyes. Dahlia knocked on the door. Moments later, it opened. An elderly woman stood there, her face lighting up with surprise. "Well, I'll be," she said. "I thought I was imagining things." "First a car, now a visitor." Dahlia smiled politely. "I'm your neighbor," she explained. "Marcus Everidge's wife. I wanted to ask if I could borrow a scythe." The woman nodded toward the fence. "Take it, and when you're done, come see me. I have something for you." Something about her tone made Dahlia pause, but she didn't question it. "Thank you," she said, taking the tool. By the time she returned, the old man had already started clearing the path. Despite his age, he worked quickly, cutting through the thick grass as if it were nothing. Within minutes, a narrow path led straight to the front door. While he worked, Dahlia moved toward one of the windows. She wiped away the dust and carefully looked inside, and froze. At the table sat a man, an old man, perfectly still, pale, watching. Dahlia gasped and stumbled backward, her heart pounding violently. What was that?" she whispered. The old man outside chuckled softly, not even stopping his work. "Ah, you saw him." Dahlia stared at him in disbelief. "Saw who?" "The house spirit," he replied calmly. "Protects the place." Her blood ran cold. "That's not funny," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm not joking," he said, finally looking at her. "If he showed himself to you, it means he accepts you." Dahlia didn't know whether to believe him or run, but something inside her told her to stay. She had come too far to turn back now. The door opened easier than she expected. Inside, the air was heavy, filled with dust and the scent of time itself. Everything was still, silent, empty. The table she had seen through the window was there, but no one sat at it. Dahlia swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. "Just your imagination," she whispered. But deep down, she wasn't so sure. Step by step, she moved through the house. Each room felt frozen in time, furniture covered in dust, walls faded with age. And then she found it, the small hidden room, the one she had been searching for. Her breath caught as she stepped inside. The icon was there, darkened with age, barely visible, but unmistakable. The sorrowful face carved into the wood seemed to look straight at her. And in that moment, everything came rushing back. 30 years ago, she had come here with a broken heart. Doctors had given her no hope. She had wanted a child more than anything. And someone had told her about this place, about this icon, about its power. Desperate, she had come. Just like now, she had knelt before it, cried, begged, and somehow, her wish had come true. She had never forgotten that miracle. But she had forgotten something else. Something important. Gratitude. Now, standing there again, her knees gave way. She fell to the ground. Tears streamed down her face as she bowed her head. "Forgive me," she whispered. Her voice trembled with emotion. "Forgive me for everything. For my sins, even the ones I don't remember." Her hands shook. "But please, spare my daughters." Her voice broke completely. "Let them know the joy of motherhood. Help them, the way you once helped me." The room remained silent. But something changed. She felt it. A strange warmth, a presence, as if she wasn't alone. Then the realization hit her like a wave. She had never come back to say thank you. Not once. More tears fell. "I was ungrateful," she cried. "Forgive me." Time seemed to lose meaning, minutes or hours. She didn't know. But slowly, the weight in her chest began to lift. The pain, the fear, the guilt, all of it began to fade. In its place came peace. A quiet, undeniable certainty. She had been heard. When she finally stood up, she felt lighter, stronger, different, as if something had shifted. Not just around her, but within her. She wiped her tears and looked around. Now, She remembered the other reason she had come. The photos. Quickly, she began searching the house. Drawers, cabinets, shelves. But there was nothing. Not a single photograph. Frustration crept in. Then she remembered the neighbor. Miss Edme? She said she had something for me. Without wasting another moment, Dahlia left the house and walked toward the neighboring yard. Something told her this journey wasn't over yet. In fact, it had only just begun. The late afternoon sun was beginning to fade. As Dahlia stepped into Miss Edme's house, inside, the air felt warmer than outside, filled with the faint scent of old wood and something cooking long ago. The place was simple, modest, but alive, unlike the abandoned house next door. The old woman gestured for her to sit. "I've been waiting for you," Miss Edme said, her voice calm but meaningful. Dahlia felt a strange unease settle in her chest. "Waiting? For me?" she asked. The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she slowly walked toward a cupboard, opened it, and pulled out a large burlap sack. It looked old, worn, and heavy. She placed it on the table with care. "This," she said, "belongs to your family." Dahlia frowned slightly, confused. "My family?" Miss Edme nodded. "For nearly 15 years after your husband's relatives left, letters kept coming. At first, I put them in the mailbox, but when it filled up, I started keeping them safe." She gently pushed the sack toward Dahlia. "I couldn't just throw them away. Some looked important." Dahlia stared at the sack. Something about it made her uneasy, as if it carried more than just paper, as if it carried secrets. "You should read them," Miss Edme added, her eyes fixed on Dahlia in a way that felt almost intentional. A quiet hint, a warning perhaps. Dahlia forced a small smile. "Thank you. That was very kind of you." She reached into her purse and pulled out a chocolate bar. "It's not much, but please." The old woman's face lit up like a child's. "Chocolate?" she whispered. "I haven't had this in years." Her joy was so genuine that it caught Dahlia off guard. For a moment, everything felt simple again. Normal. But only for a moment. Back in the old house, Dahlia placed the sack on the dusty table and untied it. Letters spilled out. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Envelopes of different sizes, colors, and ages, each one carrying a piece of the past. She began sorting them. Some were addressed to Marcus's parents, others to distant relatives, names she didn't recognize, stories she would never know. At first, it felt pointless. Just old mail. Nothing important. But then, she found one. An envelope, addressed directly to Marcus. Her breath caught. Why had he never mentioned this? Curiosity turned into unease. Slowly, she opened it. A photograph slipped out and fell onto the table. Dahlia picked it up and froze. Her heart stopped. The face in the photo looked exactly like Marcus. Same eyes, same expression, same presence, but younger, much younger. Her hands began to shake. She turned the photo over and read the words written on the back. "Your son, Devin, 22 years old." The room spun. Her mind refused to understand. Her husband had a son? A grown son? Older than their own daughters? "No," she whispered. "This can't be." Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the letter. Each word she read felt like a blade cutting deeper into her heart. The letter was from a woman Dahlia had never heard of, but one who clearly knew Marcus very well. She wrote about their past, about a child, about a son, born with a serious illness. She described how she had tried to reach Marcus again and again, how she had written letters begging for help, begging him to acknowledge his own child. But he never replied, not once. Dahlia's breathing became uneven. This wasn't just a secret. This was betrayal, a life hidden from her, a truth buried for decades. The letter continued. The woman's words became heavier, darker, filled with pain and anger. She described the struggles, raising a sick child alone, no money, no support, no hope, moving from place to place, going hungry, losing everything when their home burned down. Dahlia felt her chest tighten. Each line was unbearable, but she couldn't stop reading. She had to know the truth. She had to understand. And then she reached the final part of the letter, the words that changed everything. The woman wrote, "You think this will all disappear, Marcus, that you can ignore us and live your perfect life. But you will pay for this." Dahlia's hands trembled violently. Her eyes scanned the final lines. "You will pay the highest price for your cruelty. Your bloodline will end with you." Her heart pounded in her ears. "If you have daughters, they will never have children." A cold wave ran through her body. "They will feel the same pain I felt, the same suffering my son endured." The letter ended, but the silence it left behind was deafening. Dahlia sat there, unable to move, unable to think. The words echoed in her mind, over and over again. They will never have children. Her daughters, Simone, Zara, their pain, their struggle, their unanswered prayers. All of it suddenly made sense. Or at least, it felt like it did. Tears slowly filled her eyes. "No," she whispered. "It can't be this." But deep inside, fear began to grow. What if it was true? What if this wasn't just a coincidence? What if everything happening now was the result of something Marcus had done long ago? The pieces started falling into place. Her private theory, the feeling that something wasn't right, the doctors having no answers, the endless waiting, the silent suffering. And now, this letter, this curse, because that's what it felt like. A curse, placed not just on Marcus, but on their entire family. Dahlia pressed the letter against her chest. Her whole body felt cold. Her perfect life wasn't perfect at all. It had been built on a lie, a hidden past, a forgotten child, and a pain that had never been healed. That night, she didn't sleep, not even for a moment. She packed everything carefully, the letters, the photograph, and the icon. She couldn't leave it behind, not now, not after everything. The next day, she returned home. The journey felt different this time, heavier, each mile bringing her closer to a truth she didn't know how to face. Back in her house, everything looked the same. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything had changed. Marcus returned the following day, happy,
Relaxed.
excited. He greeted her with the same warmth as always, the same love, the same smile, as if nothing had ever been wrong. "You won't believe the gift I got you," he said cheerfully. "It's something special." Dahlia looked at him, really looked at him, trying to see something different, something hidden. But all she saw was the man she had loved for 30 years. Was it possible that this man had done something so cruel? That he had abandoned his own son? That he had ignored a child in need? Her heart refused to believe it. But the letter said otherwise. "Honey, what's wrong?" Marcus asked, noticing her silence. Dahlia forced herself to stay calm. "It's nothing," she said quietly. "I'm just tired." He frowned slightly. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "We'll talk tomorrow." Because she couldn't say it now. Not yet. Not like this. That night, Marcus fell asleep quickly. But Dahlia lay awake in the darkness, her mind racing, her heart torn between love and truth, between the man she knew and the man described in that letter. Hours passed. Finally, she got up, slowly, quietly, and walked into the room where she had placed the icon. It stood there, silent, watching, waiting. Dahlia sat in front of it, her eyes filled with tears once again. "What do I do?" she whispered. No answer came. But then a thought formed. Clear, strong, unavoidable. She couldn't ignore this. She couldn't pretend it never happened. She couldn't let her daughters suffer for something they didn't do. If there was even the smallest chance that this was connected, she had to act. Her hands clenched tightly. Her decision was made. She would find him. This man, Devon, Marcus's son, the one who had been abandoned, the one who had suffered, the one whose existence had been hidden for decades. Because somewhere in his story lay the truth, and maybe the only chance to fix everything. Dahlia wiped her tears. Her face hardened with determination. This wasn't just about the past anymore. This was about her daughter's future, and she would do whatever it took to protect it, even if it meant destroying everything she believed in, even if it meant facing a truth she wasn't ready to hear. Morning came, but Dahlia hadn't truly slept. Her eyes were heavy, her heart even heavier, but her mind was clear. For the first time since discovering the letter, she knew exactly what she had to do. She could no longer live in silence. She could no longer pretend that nothing had happened. And most importantly, she could not allow her daughters to suffer for a past they knew nothing about. At breakfast, Marcus sat across from her, calm and cheerful as always, sipping his coffee like any ordinary day. But to Dahlia, nothing felt ordinary anymore. She looked at him for a long moment. 30 years. 30 years of love, trust, and shared life. And now, this. "Marcus," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but carried a weight he had never heard before. He looked up immediately. "What is it?" Dahlia didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood up, walked to the cabinet, and brought back the bundle of letters. She placed them on the table. Marcus frowned. "What's this?" "I went to your old house," she said. His expression shifted slightly, surprise, confusion. "You, what?" "I found these," she continued. "They were kept by your neighbor. Letters sent to your family for years." Marcus leaned forward slowly. Something in his face changed. Something uneasy. Dahlia took a deep breath. And I found something else. She pulled out the photograph, placed it in front of him. The moment Marcus saw it, his face lost all color. His hand froze midair. The silence between them became unbearable. Who is he? Dahlia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. The truth was already written across his face. Minutes passed. Heavy, suffocating minutes. Finally, Marcus spoke. His name is Devon. Dahlia closed her eyes, hearing it confirmed. Hurt more than she expected. You knew, she said. All these years, you knew. Marcus lowered his head. Yes, the word hit like a hammer. Why? Dahlia's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? Marcus struggled to find his voice. It happened before I met you, he said slowly. I was young, careless. I made a mistake. A mistake? Dahlia repeated, disbelief in her tone. A child is not a mistake, Marcus. His silence was his guilt. He finally looked up, his eyes filled with something Dahlia had never seen before. Shame. I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid of losing everything. Afraid of responsibility. Afraid of ruining my future. With you. Dahlia's heart ached. So you chose to ignore him? She said. To ignore your own son? Marcus clenched his fists. I thought it would go away. Dahlia shook her head slowly, tears falling. And when she wrote to you? When she begged for help? Marcus closed his eyes. I couldn't face it. The room fell silent again. Dahlia picked up the letter and held it out to him. Then you need to read this. Marcus hesitated, but took it. As his eyes moved across the lines, his expression changed. Shock, pain, regret, and then fear. When he reached the final lines, his hands began to tremble. No, he whispered. This isn't... But the words were there. Clear, unforgiving. They will never have children. Marcus looked up at Dahlia, panic in his eyes. Do you believe this? He asked. Dahlia didn't answer immediately. I don't know what to believe, she said honestly. But I know one thing. Her voice hardened. Our daughters are suffering, and you may be the reason why. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing the room. This can't be happening, he muttered. This isn't real. But deep down, he knew. This wasn't about curses. This was about consequences, about a past he had buried, coming back to demand its price. What do we do? He asked finally, his voice broken. Dahlia looked at him. We find him. Marcus froze. Devon, she said. We find your son. He shook his head instinctively. I don't even know where he is. Then we start looking, Dahlia replied firmly. Because running away didn't fix anything before. It won't fix it now. Days passed in a blur. Using the information from the letters, they began their search. Old addresses, names, records. It wasn't easy, but piece by piece, they found a trail, and eventually it led them to him. Devon lived in a small, quiet town, far from the life Marcus had built, far from everything. When they arrived, Dahlia could feel Marcus's tension beside her. Are you ready? She asked. No, he said honestly. But I have to be. They knocked on the door. Moments later, it opened. A man stood there, early 30s, pale, tired, but unmistakably, Marcus's son. The resemblance was undeniable. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Devon's eyes shifted from Dahlia to Marcus, and something changed. Recognition, not from memory, but from stories, from pain. You, Devon said quietly. Marcus swallowed hard. Yes, the word carried years of guilt. I don't want anything from you, Devon said immediately, his voice cold. If you came to ease your conscience, don't bother. Dahlia stepped forward gently. We didn't come for that, she said. Devon looked at her, confused. Then why are you here? Dahlia hesitated, then spoke the truth. Because we were wrong. Marcus closed his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he did something he had never done. He faced it. I'm sorry, he said. Simple words, but they carried everything. Years of silence, years of neglect, years of regret. Devon laughed bitterly. Sorry? He repeated. Do you think that fixes anything? No, Marcus admitted. It doesn't. He stepped forward slightly. But I will spend the rest of my life trying, if you let me. The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. Devon didn't respond, but his expression softened, just slightly. Dahlia spoke again. We're not asking for forgiveness today, she said. We just wanted you to know you're not alone anymore. Silence. Heavy. Emotional. Real. Before leaving, Dahlia turned back. One more thing, she said softly. We want to help you. With your health. With your life. With anything you need. Devon didn't answer, but this time, he didn't reject it either. Weeks passed, then months, slowly, carefully. A connection began to form. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Marcus stayed in touch, helped where he could, and for the first time, he acted like a father. And then something unexpected happened. Simone called one evening, her voice shaking. "Mom," she said, I'm pregnant." Dahlia froze. Tears filled her eyes instantly. "What?" she whispered. "I don't know how." "But I am," Simone cried. Dahlia couldn't speak. She just wept. Days later, Zara called too, with the same news, the same miracle, the same impossible joy. Dahlia stood in front of the icon that night, tears streaming down her face. But this time, they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. The anniversary celebration came. Beautiful, joyful, full of life. But the greatest gift wasn't the film, wasn't the party, wasn't even the surprise. It was something far deeper. A truth had been revealed. A wrong had been faced. A broken past had finally begun to heal. And Dahlia understood something she would never forget. You cannot escape your past, but you can face it. You can make it right. And sometimes, when you do, life gives you a second chance. Not just for yourself, but for everyone you love.